Okay, here we are with the lecture on the organization of the skeleton. And I'm going to start with a little review, and that would be the terms that you're going to need to know, not only for Friday's quiz, but also for identifying the bones of the human skeleton. So you should have this list of structures and their meanings already handed out to you. But if not, you can find this link on my webpage on the chapter 5 under the skeleton. So these are the terms that you're going to need to know. I would suggest making flashcards. All right, let's start with those notes. Okay, move this a little bit. Organization of the skeleton. The skeleton is divided into two major parts, the axial and appendicular skeleton. Axial, think of the axis or the main part of the skeleton. It would include the head, neck, and trunk. It's that part of the skeleton that supports and protects, your brain, your heart, lungs, but that's the axial skeleton. Now attached to that would be the appendicular skeleton. The appendicular skeleton would include the bones of the limbs and bones that anchor those limbs to your skeleton, to the axial skeleton. So it's not just the arms and legs, but it's also your pelvic girdle and your pectoral girdle. So two major parts when we start looking at the skeleton. I'm going to go ahead and show you a quick picture here. Slide, slide, slide this over. Here is the skeleton. And you can see then that the axial skeleton is going to just be this main part when we start talking about the cranium and the thoracic cage and your vertebral column. And then the appendicular skeleton would be the pectoral girdles, here and here, and then your pelvic girdle, and then of course your arms and legs and how they're attached. So let's see, on Thursday, I believe I'll have the skeleton, our classroom skeleton out. All right, back. Sorry for this little, switch. All right, so let's look at the axial skeleton. The axial skeleton consists of your cranium and facial bones, which would be your skull, and also a little known bone called the hyoid bone. This is the bone that supports your tongue and then serves as an attachment for muscles that help move your tongue and also aid in swallowing. Let me show you a picture of that. There you can see, I can enlarge it a little bit. Do you see how it sits? This would be like your voice box, and that hyoid bone just sits right there. I'm not sure if we can see it on the skeleton in the lab or not. All right, so that's the hyoid bone. So you have the bones of the skull, which are your cranium and facial bones, the hyoid bone between your lower jaw and larynx, your vertebral column or backbone made of vertebrae, which you made with your hallway skeletons, the sacrum and then coccyx, and then of course your thoracic cage or rib cage, where we've got protection, your ribs and sternum surrounding your heart and lungs. Okay, so those are the bones of your axial skeleton. Going on to the appendicular skeleton, remember we said that you have the anchor for your appendages. So if we start on the top and move down, we've got the pectoral girdle, which would connect the bones of your arms to the axial skeleton, and they would aid in arm movements. So your humerus, the top of your arm bone, actually fits into this pectoral girdle, which is composed of your scapula and clavicle. Okay, I'm going to pause for just a minute. I'm hoping this is still on, and switch to the next page. Mm. Okay, sorry, I lost my control bar. So sorry for that little dead time. But back to the appendicular skeleton. So we have the pectoral girdle with the scapula and clavicle, where you're going to have the attachment of your humerus, and then the radius and ulna on the way down to your hand, where you've got your carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. Okay, so appendicular skeleton, pectoral girdle with the upper limbs, and as we keep moving down, we've got the pelvic girdle with your lower limbs. So your pelvic girdle is made of or composed of the coxal bones, which are your hip bones, and the pelvis. So when we start talking about pelvis and pelvic girdle, the coxal bones, the coccyx, and the sacrum, it's all composed into the same structure. Same, yeah. And that's where you have your femur attached. The proximal end of your femur is going to go into that socket within your pelvic girdle, and then down to your knee, where you've got the tibia and fibula going down to your feet. The patella is your kneecap, and then you have tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. So again, you're going to want to make sure that you take a look at the skeleton, pictures of the skeletons. We're going to get the skeleton out from the science lab so that you can identify these different bones while you're doing exercise 13. But then also we'll be looking at the bones individually in the next few weeks. So get your outline completed, and we'll talk about this on Thursday in class.